Well, welcome to Mining Now, where we explore the latest in technology, innovation, and leadership across the mining sector. And I'm your host today, Roy Slack. In this episode, we'll feature Satish Penmetsa, who's the CEO of GroundHog, and he's joined by Steve Immenschuh from Cementation. And we're going to talk about mine digitization and automation, which is a very hot topic these days. So let's start the show. And welcome, Satish and Steve.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having us.
And Satish, before we get into GroundHog, we want to hear a bit about yourself. How did you end up in the mine digitization field? What's your background?
Yeah, so like I tell everybody, right, 10 years ago, the only thing I knew about mining was how to spell mining. I'm a software engineer through and through. And then, I did my MBA at the Wharton School of Business, where one of my classmates was Jess Kindler. Until recently, he was the senior vice president at Epiroc, and he just moved over to, stateside to run a different company. But anyways, he had introduced us to mining, which is, he took us out on a tour to one of the mines out in Nevada. And then, once we went to site, we actually saw a lot of the inefficiencies that existed in a mine. And Jess basically said, look, I know you're starting a new company. Why don't you focus on solving real use cases for real people instead of going out and building out yet another photo sharing app? And that's how we got introduced to mining. He had actually given us our first blank check to go out and, a check for $25,000 to go out and build an app that his sales and service guys could use out in the field. And that's how we got engaged with the mining companies. And then, now I feel I know so much about mining that I can get a master's degree in mining, number one. And I think I'm unemployable outside of the mining industry. That's how hyper-focused we've become.
That's great.
And that's the genesis of GroundHog, at least. So
okay, well, and Steve, I'll just ask you to introduce yourself. You're with a company. Let me see. It's called Cementation. Is that a cement company, a concrete company? What does that group do?
No, underground development, shaft construction projects across the nation here.
And what's your role with the company, Steve?
So my role is performance manager. Basically what that entails is working with safety and productivity operations and looking to improve every aspect of it that we can for all our sites. Okay,
thanks. And just full disclosure for the audience, I'm on the board of Cementation, so I know a little bit about the company. But Satish, let's get back to GroundHog. And I looked on the website, and you talk about mining more tons, faster, and safer. And then you've got safer, you've capitalized safer. I really like that. But in general terms, how is GroundHog doing this?
Through a wide variety of ways. From a safety standpoint, we do have a learning management system to ensure that all the miners are signed off on the tasks that they are supposed to be performing. So you can't start a task that you're not signed off on. And it's very quickly accessible. All the data is accessible. The training content is accessible, so that every miner is trained to do the job correctly. They're observed and then given the 5023 to go out and do that particular job. So that's one aspect. The second aspect is we have real-time location tracking now, so we can monitor where every miner is at all times, where every miner is and where every piece of equipment is at all times. So you're able to see all of this in a 3D mine map and visualize where they are, so that from a mine safety standpoint, you have all the proper engineering controls in place and monitoring in place to ensure safety of the miners. So the safety part that you're talking about is we actually have specific products that address safety. And third is we also have a third product that is used for pre-start inspections and workplace exams, where, in addition to just doing the workplace exam, you also identify hazards, potential hazards, and then create work orders to go fix those hazards. One from a MSHA compliance standpoint to check the mark for MSHA compliance, but more importantly, just for general behaviors, right? You want to encourage those sorts of behaviors. And I know Cementation also has a safety PACE program where you reward employees for identifying potential hazards and then helping clean up those hazards as well. So, and the underlying technology for that is also one of our products, Rapid Inspect. So there's multiple ways that our products enhance safety within the mine through some of our digital products. So
let's talk about our heavy industry tour brought to you by Savannah Equipment, supplying mining equipment worldwide. We are heading to events across North America, Africa, and Australia and filming episodes on location. Email us at info@crownsman.com to be part of our Crownsman's Heavy Industry World Tour. Your trusted partner of choice, Bestech Engineering, is excited to announce that they have acquired Spencer Engineering. This allows Bestech to add mine hoist expertise to their existing suite of services, including mining, power, electrical, instrumentation and automation, mechanical, and structural divisions. This diversification will offer clients the highest level of service and value for their projects. Don't miss out on this exciting new chapter of engineering excellence. Reach out today at besttech@besttech.com to learn how Bestech can help you. DMA Filtration is the ideal partner in solid liquid separation. Headquarter and manufacturing facilities in Italy with over 6,000 installations all over the world, DMA Filtration takes you beyond the boundaries of innovation thanks to the wide range of filter press models and thickeners available within the product portfolio. The launch of Domino, the largest filter press in the world, and AIDA, the system tutor providing real-time connection with the company, are only the latest achievements for this group, which is committed to continuous improvement. You can visit them at dmafiltration.com to learn more. Fender Dunlop Usflex belts are engineered to withstand the harshest applications, delivering benefits that solve customer problems via superior rip, tear, and impact resistance. Usflex are extremely strong and robust belts that are difficult to destroy, which is important for heavy-duty bulk material handling environments. Made in their very own North American manufacturing facilities, this revolutionary concept in straight warp conveyor belting is up to 3 times more impact resistant versus competitor belting. Usflex users use fewer belts per year, make fewer belt repairs and replacements, reduce or eliminate belt downtime, and improve employee safety. You can visit FenderDunlopAmericas.com to learn more about their premium Usflex conveyor belting.
I was familiar a bit with GroundHog, but when I started to do a little bit of research before this show, I shouldn't say I was surprised, but the breadth of your product line, and I assume they're all integrated in some way, but there's a wide variety of things. I mean, safety we're obviously focused on, but there are a lot of other pieces to the puzzle.
Yeah, they sure are. And I think we've approached it as a company that knew nothing about mining, where customers actually said, hey, this is important to us. And then we go out and fix it. What we are really good at is understanding. I think what we are super good at is just understanding what end customer's pain point is and creating user interfaces and a platform that makes it super easy and simple for them to solve those problems by streamlining workflows and things like that. I think that's our software programming background, both mine and Krishna's, and also the design background, user-centered design background, helps us build better products for mining. We find that mining is very underserved as a market. So we just said, what, let's go in there and just change the way mining software is built. So.
Well, it sounds, I remember someone telling me once that the trick to software is designing it from the deliverable back. And that sounds like exactly what you're doing. Yeah. Steve, how long has Cementation been working with GroundHog, and how did you end up working with them?
So as Satish mentioned, safety pays, that came up probably, I almost speak out line, about 4 years ago, Satish, 4 or 5 years ago. And the intent, sorry, go again. The intention of that, 5 years, perfect. The intention of that was to reward people for reporting, right? Stopping cracks, near misses, improvements that we're making out in the field and actually correcting them in the field. That's where it all started. And then the next step was Satish started down in Mexico at Los Gatos project when we started looking into the training platform that he's talking about, LMS, and training of the national workforce to, cementation standards of the Common Core modules and all the competency-based training that we do. The next introduction, taking all those aspects, came in at Kennecott, where we started working with Satish for short interval control and the fleet management system, and started tying all these aspects together.
So fleet management, because I'm a rookie at all this. I know a little bit about it, but that when you talk about fleet management, that incorporates both maintenance systems and inventory, or I'm not sure what it all encompasses.
Yeah, exactly. So anything from resources, from people, consumables, to the productive time in the face, to the availability of equipment, the maintenance of the equipment. Yes, every aspect of that right there covers FMS.
Geograph is Australia's leading manufacturer of enhanced performance mining parts. Geograph designs and manufactures enhanced wear parts to suit major mining machinery from Caterpillar, Komatsu, Hitachi, Liebherr, and more. The Geograph Enhanced Performance range is designed to reduce downtime and operating costs for mine sites and off-site repairers by engineering wear parts to last longer. Geograph challenges you to expect more from yourself and your assets. Visit geograph.com.au for more information or click the link in the video description below. Okay, so let's give a special thank you to one of our longest sponsors of the show, Savona Equipment. And I'm actually going to hand it over to Jared so that he can give you a little bit more info on Savona Equipment.
Yeah, thank you. So I mean, people see them as sponsors, so they'll ask me, kind of who they are, what they are, and just trying to understand the scope of the company. So Savona Equipment is a mining supply company, and they're delivering on the whole equipment supply chain. So everything from the ore processing to underground mining, open pit. They're in hard rock and placer operations. And what they're doing is they're sourcing equipment from all over the world and then delivering it all over the world. Now, they are a Canadian company, so they're based there, but, let's say, they're selling entire ore processing plants. So there might be a plant down in Latin America, and there's a new mine that needs that plant in Africa or somewhere in the US. So they're facilitating that entire transactions. But they're also delivering, an individual conveyor or a concentrator or a pump package or just an electrical package. So it really is the whole gambit of the mining equipment supply chain.
Oh, that's great then. Well, then you definitely have to check them out if you're looking for mining equipment. Visit them at savonaequipment.com, where you will find more equipment every day. CIM is the leading membership organization for technical content and creating connections in the mining industry. Mining professionals and students can access a breadth of technical expertise through the CIM Technical Paper Library, the WineMine Digital Repository, the CIM Journal, the CIM Magazine, and attend upcoming CIM webinars. Whether you're working in the field, in the office, or at home, join the community today and learn how they can help you achieve your professional goals. Visit them at cim.org.
So Satish, I was interested, I saw the term the mine manager platform, and I had this visual of someone standing watching everyone from above, maybe not godlike, but tell us a bit about that. Because, is that, I got it right?
The big brother, like, if not godlike,
big brother.
Big brother, like.
So is this something that ties it all together or gives selective information to certain people, or?
We have role-based access controls, which basically says, certain people have certain sorts of information. But, within the platform, all the data is within the same platform. It's just that it's visualized differently for different sets of people. Like your mine manager or your project manager is interested in certain sort of KPIs, right? Whereas the dispatcher, all he cares about is what am I supposed to do this shift? Whereas the supervisor is, well, what's my crew doing, right? So the same data just presented differently so that, you don't need to copy paste from one application to another application anymore like it used to be, right? Now everything's within that same, data fabric. And like I said, you just present different interfaces based on the use cases they are trying to achieve, which goes back to what you had said earlier is, purpose-built software, right? what is a miner at the face expected to do, and what sort of information does he need to do his job better. Same thing with the supervisors as well, is, what sort of information does he need to make real-time decisions out in the field when shit hits the fan, right? So those sorts of things, it's just on one data fabric. And like you said, it's a mine management system. So it's the mining OS of choice for operations, maintenance, and safety. So
Yeah, Satish, I like that concept, the My Manager platform, and we talk about it in project management is getting the right information to the right people, the information that they can use to make things better. And that sounds like the concept here.
yeah, absolutely right. It's pretty much that same concept. Yes. There's a lot of companies that have been talking about it. I think we are one of the first to actually do stuff, just get it done, right, in a seamless fashion. That too. So,
well, I'm gonna take this opportunity to educate myself a bit on some of this, and there's a lot of talk too about short interval controls, and Steve, are you using them in what you're doing, and what exactly are they, and how do they help you?
Yeah, so the intention of short interval control for us is to take a Deswick schedule, import that in, and have a somewhat of a perfect day lined out for a week span, right? During that week span, we measure our actuals to that plan and see if our forecasting is correct.
Okay, you wouldn't want to put my perfect day in there. That wouldn't be very productive at all. But and there's I'm trying to remember if GroundHog, when we first looked at it at Cementation, it had to do with maintenance. But we were looking for a maintenance system in the company as well. And so are you using that module now?
Yeah, that's correct. So we track all our breakdowns through the software, and then within that we implemented our planned work. So now we can do our inspections, 250s, 1,000 RPMs, things like that within the tablet view. And what it does is it creates a work order that we can assign to parts. And then within that, we can track pictures and comments and create a backlog list electronically of things that need to be repaired when we get parts, or an immediate shutdown, or hey, when we get more time on the next PM, we'll tie this into the next one.
Okay, well, Satish, I'm very familiar with what Cementation does, and it's not what a typical mining company does. But I'm assuming you've got a product, but then you've got to spend a fair bit of time with your clients to adapt it, because every mine site's different. Contractors are different from mine operators. Must be a lot of customization involved.
I wouldn't call it customization. There's two different things. One is customizability, and the other is configurability. The way we've written the software is it's very configurable. That is, customizability means, for every new customer, we need to write a new set of code. That just becomes, spaghetti code, and then, it just becomes very, very, very hard to maintain. What we do is, we emphasize on configurability. So for a mining contractor that's, doing a cut and fill operation, there's a configuration, there's an XML file, we call it a JSON file that just needs to be updated. So I don't need to change any code. It's the same code base for all of our customers. It's how the code is used or how the workflows work is all handled using a separate file, which is called a configuration file. And that's how we, adapt to different types of mining operations. Between contractors and the actual mines itself, there isn't that much of a difference in the kinds of activities they do, right? You are doing the basic drill, blast, muck cycles and all of that, right? So we've just made it so that it's configurable across all types of customers. And then, certain customers want certain modules. And we've also enabled that as, everybody gets that basic data platform, on top of which they just add modules as they go along, and it's all seamless.
So I guess maybe adaptability isn't the right word, but we've been talking about underground, but it seems to me that this is very much applicable to open pit as well, any type of mining.
Absolutely. And what we found is the use cases for underground mines are very different from open pit mines, especially from a production control standpoint. So we have a separate product that is built on top of the same platform that addresses all the open pit use cases. For example, for them, they care more about dynamic dispatch and routing, and then grade control from benches to the ROM pads to the stockpile. So those are separate sets of use cases that we've again enabled on the same platform. The thing that's common is the maintenance configurations and stuff are common between both open pit and underground, but everything else from an operation standpoint, it's very, very different. It's very different. It's one of the reasons why, say like a MineStar or a modular does not work underground, because for them, their software, great as it is, it's not configurable enough for an underground operation. Whereas ours, I'm glad that we started when we did, because we've learned from their mistakes. We've learned from their use cases. And there's nothing wrong in learning from other people's mistakes, I think, in the industry. So
yeah, no, I hear you. A number of people have learned from mine. So, but one question I always have with regard to technology, and in our industry, my opinion, our industry is very innovative, but our struggle in mining is adopting new technology. There's lots out there, lots of interesting things. Satish, what have you seen? I mean, you've been looking at this for 10 years now. Is the rate of adoption picking up? Is the mining industry become more acceptive of technology now?
Yeah, I've seen a big shift in perceptions around technology, especially over the past 4 or 5 years. And I think there are two primary drivers, right? If you look at the labor in the mining industry and all of that, right? 10 years ago, we used to see older people as in, people above 50, 55, that were in senior positions within these companies at the mines. And then, when you look at the aging of the age groups, there were very few in their 40s and late 30s that were working in the mining industry. They were either very young or very old. And then as times, the past 5-10 years, most of these older guys have started retiring. So now you're starting to see mine managers that are as young as like 35. And those guys are all digitally tuned in. Whereas the older guys, during the first, 3-4 years when we went out to our mine site to show all the cool apps we had, one of the most common comments that I heard back was, look, we've been mining for 200 years and it works. Why should I change? Right. And I'm like, yeah, 200 years ago, you were using pickaxes and shovels. Now you use scoops, don't you? And for them, it just flew over their heads, right? Because they were not willing to adopt new technologies. But now, everybody has an iPhone. 10 years ago, not everybody had an iPhone or an Android phone. They were still using flip phones. But now, even the older guys, right? They use an iPhone or an Android phone, and their grandkids, to interact with them, they use smart devices. So they understand what's possible. So I've seen that shift happen over these past 4-5 years. And then I think COVID has accelerated all of the shift to digitization, because now you want access to your data at all times. During COVID, one of the biggest struggles for most of the mines was, they didn't get their production reports on time, because you had to go to site, and not everybody was allowed to go to site at all times. So now that at least, made most of these mining companies rethink their data strategy, their digital strategy, their technology strategy. And then, it's pervasive, right? I'll also say this is many years ago, maybe 7-8 years ago, I was at the SME conference. And at that conference, and I forget his name, the the guy that delivered the keynote, he basically said, look, oil and gas is about 10 years behind on the technology curve, in terms of adopting new technology, right? Mining is about 30 years behind oil and gas. And I think it's because we are stubborn. Okay. And that mindset has to change, right? Forget being 30 years behind, forget getting, on par. Let's at least get to like 20 years behind oil and gas. And based on all the trajectories that I'm seeing now, I mean, we are starting to close the gap with oil and gas. But you're nowhere close to, Silicon Valley technologies and stuff in mining. But I think a lot of the changes and adoption is primarily being driven by the new the new leaders within the mining industry that seem to be in their early 30s, early in their 30s. I mean, people like Steve, right? Steve's not too old, are you?
No, 36.
See, people like Steve.
We won't divulge each of our ages here, but that's a segue, Satish, because I wanted to ask Steve, and I know that Cementation and the board and executive were keen on technology, whether it's just technology or something. We needed something, but I really think a key to it is someone like Steve. You're getting a kudos here, Steve. Is someone like Steve that is passionate about it and also understands it. But so the question for you, Steve, is what were your challenges and how did implementation go? Because it's not as easy as going to a project and saying you're using this.
No, agreed. That's some of the challenges you got to overcome when you're working with the guys at the face, right? They're already having a hard time, call it, down in the face, working all day, and then to start asking them to track every aspect. But what it came down to is just letting them know that we're not tracking them specifically, right? We're looking at each individual step of the cycle and what we can do as a company to support them guys and make their life easier. And that was the big stressor through it for me, was just working with them and understanding that, hey, nobody's here to point the finger at John specifically. It's to look at what can we do? What are the issues you guys are constantly having that we can correct immediately for you? Once they understood that, then it became relatively simple, and it was a very quick transition where we started having miners even ask about themselves. Hey, how many bolts an hour did I do last week? Or things like, they started seeing that it wasn't us attacking them. It's us gathering information to make it better for them. So then we started seeing that transition.
I think, there's in safety culture, certainly there's the concept of positive reinforcement. If you can use the data for positive rather than how come you only got so many, instead of, wow, good job, you got this many. I could see it.
Yeah. And the other nice thing about it is, as we started getting some of this data rolled in, they seen Cementation and the clients working to correct that issue. We started building our lean process off the information gathered by GroundHog. So then they seen the updates almost daily on their whiteboard of what we're trying to do to fix that issue for them. And when they start seeing people working to fix issues for them, then they're even more bought into the system.
Okay, so Steve, your background, you've been an operator, you've worked at the face, and often we see, that's where the challenge is in acceptance of technology. But so how is this working? The technology, you've been trying to implement it.
Yeah, the very nice thing about GroundHog is the ease of use of the apps, right? Every one of the apps that are developed are very easy to follow, understand, implement from the miner level at the face, right? It's not a complicated software. You don't get frustrated with the software. It's simple, it's to the point, and very easy to use. And I think that really helps the guys at the face implement it even more, is they don't have to get frustrated with doing something that's hard to do.
Yeah, that's so important when you're trying to get something accepted, is convey to people the value of it, but also that it doesn't add to their workload, so to speak.
Exactly, right. That's things we tend to do at times is just continue to add to the workload and not try to simplify any process. And the nice thing, again, about the GroundHog apps is they're simple to use.
And I think, like Satish mentioned earlier, not just mine management is younger, but the miners are younger as well, and they're more used to all types of technology. So that must help too.
Absolutely, for sure.
I know we had talked, and Satish, I think you mentioned it, is one of the aspects of it in terms of safety is to ensure that people operating equipment have the correct training. So
Right.
it's not asking them, are you trained on this? It's having the information at your fingertips, so to speak.
You speak to Joe after you know that he's actually trained on a piece of equipment rather than asking Joe whether he's trained on an equipment and then, assigning him a task or something like that, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm trained on a scoop, but the training was done 40 years ago. Nobody needs to know that. So Satish, I mean, obviously this is happening in the States with cementation and in the Americas. Uh, what's your geographical scope? Where are you operating?
So until about maybe 3 years ago, we were primarily focused on the US and Canada. And now we have customers in Australia, India, Egypt, Zambia, all over the place, right? And then we have pilots starting up in Peru and Chile as well. So um, I think, like I said, I mean, we've hit that inflection point where enough people know about us. And the other thing that I forgot to mention is when we started out, we were a company called Rapid BizApps, and GroundHog was the name of our product. Uh, and when we went out to other mines and tried to sell them on GroundHog, they would always say, "Hey, the Rapid guys are here, or the Rapid Biz guys are here, or the Rapid Apps guys are here," and nobody remembered us. And the first interaction, they always felt like we were a consulting company because Rapid Biz Apps is like you can build any app you want, kind of. It gives that kind of positioning, right? So um, back in the day, a lot of people, and I'm talking back to 2018, people were saying, "Hey, why don't you just change the name to GroundHog? I mean, it sounds like a cool name." But groundhog.com was not available. And then, when we identified that, to get more sales, you actually have to change the name of the company and branding so that a lot more people can relate to the brand is when we said, okay, fine, let's do this. And we did that in February of 2020. We changed the name of the company to GroundHog. And from then on, I mean, then when you say, "Hey, I'm calling you from GroundHog," then they say, "Okay, fine. It sounds like a mining company. Let's talk." And then we do the demos and all of that.
It's a pretty down to earth name, no pun intended, but
yeah. And then there are a lot of cultural references as well. So recall rates are higher, right? So yeah, just worked out, I guess.
oh, that's good. So the company has had some pretty rapid growth over the last 10 years. I mean, really, 10 years ago, you were a startup, right?
Yeah.
Somebody wrote you a check and said, go for it.
Yeah. And most of our business for the first 8 years was all consulting. That is, if you had an idea for an app, we'd go out and build it for you. And we did not have a mining focus. Until, say, 2019, we did not have a mining focus. We would work with startups here in the Valley. We'd work with healthcare companies. We'd work with IT companies. We worked with Adobe. We worked with NetApp. We worked with quite a few large Silicon Valley companies. Then we said, you know what, our DNA is about creating kick-ass products. Why should we be creating these products for other people? We should build our own products and start selling them. So that's when we pivoted from being a consulting company to a full-on product company, product and a product platform specifically for mining.
And what you said earlier, you quoted someone who said, how far mining was behind in these areas. And
Dean Gehrig at Rio Tinto.
okay, okay,
Dean.
yep. So you must have seen that as a huge opportunity. To break into an industry that's cutting edge is one thing, but to try to help an industry that's trying to catch up, that's probably a great opportunity for you and your company.
It's a huge opportunity and a huge effort in trying to change the cultural mindsets, right? Saying, hey, the cultural mindset of, I can do everything you want on this piece of paper to look, now there's an app that, I can just, log in and do stuff. It's a big shift in mindset.
And Steve, what's next for the applications at Cementation?
Continuing to advance on the maintenance module is probably one of our biggest works with Satish and his group right now is taking that maintenance current system and expanding to multiple aptitudes of it.
And Satish, what else did you want to tell our audience? We talked about that early. You've probably got 100 things you want to say, but I'll hand the microphone to you.
I mean, the only thing I'll say is we are super passionate about mining and transforming mining, right? I think all of us can do a lot more than we currently do per man hour, more safely using technology. It doesn't always have to be a GroundHog. I mean, any sort of technology, as long as it's rolled out properly, will improve working conditions, will also improve morale, will improve safety. And obviously, all of these ties into production, right? And then for us with GroundHog, I mean, back in the day, they used to say nobody got fired for hiring IBM. I think one of our core differentiators, I think, is our support. Right, we stand by our products, and we are super quick to respond. So I don't think anybody will have a bad experience working with GroundHog. And from a company standpoint, culture flows top down, and in my mind, we enforce that as well as customer success comes first. It trumps everything else.
Well, I always talk about safety and about process and culture, and I think the next step change for us is process, culture, and technology. And both of you have been talking about that. I'm passionate about safety. Steve knows that, and I see huge potential in things like GroundHog. And the platform sounds like a one-stop shop for mine digitization. Is that a fair description?
That's a very accurate description.
That's very accurate.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
one-stop shop for operations, maintenance, safety, and geology.
well, Satish, Steve, thank you very much for joining us today. It's been a very interesting discussion from my standpoint. I learned a lot. And to our audience, thank you for joining us on another great Mining Now show.